What's going on, Mountaineer Nation? Welcome back into the CRW podcast here for episode 211 in season 7. We won a home game. We're going to a bowl game. Finally, a positive result here to talk about from a home game on the Country Roads Webcast. We couldn't be more excited to talk about it, dive into it, share our thoughts, and joining me to help me do just that, of course, my co host, Brad. What's going on, Brad?
Not too much, man. Yeah, W. Got to win. It's whether you love it or hate it. It's a win. So we're gonna take it.
That's right. And finally, getting one at home. We knew we were due for that. We were hoping to finally get one there to close the season. Senior Day, true blue game. West Virginia finally gets it done at home. Neal Brown gets another win. You know, it's like every time he desperately needs one, his back's against the wall. He finds a way to get it done. I don't know if that changed a lot of people's minds about how they're feeling about the situation. Really, it didn't sound like it there. You know, being at the stadium, from the grumblings I was hearing from the fan base, they still sounded aggravated. Didn't really change their minds too much. And you know, the atmosphere was the best. I'm sure there have been pictures going around. You know, being there in person, I can attest to it being not a lot of people there, but the people that were there were passionate and loud and cheering on the guys and helped lead to a W. But I mean, what about you, Brad? Has it changed your feelings on the Neal Brown situation and, you know, the future of WVU football? How are you kind of feeling? You know, one game left, we've won one, we're heading to a bowl game. I don't know. Has it changed anything for you personally?
I don't know. I may or may not have jokingly said in the chat, "Trust the climb. Give me year 7 20 minutes ago." But I don't know. I think that he's at a point where he's got to win every game on the way out anyway. I don't know if a decision's been made or not. I know that's a lot of the grumblings and the rumors going around. Is that
There's a lot
it's
of smoke
already
for that right now. Yeah, like the
yeah.
time we're recording, it's so fluid it can change. But right now, the time we're recording seems to be a lot of smoke that it sounds like it's almost a lot of people are thinking that it's a done deal no matter what happens in this final game against Texas Tech. I don't know that to be true. Like I said, purely speculation just from rumblings that you're hearing. But I don't know. It's going to be tough. I think that, you know, like the last game shouldn't matter in making this decision right, but it's also a big difference to fire a coach that's 6-6 versus firing a coach that's 7-5 too. So I don't know.
Yeah. Well, and if I
Just
told
that.
you at the end of the season that we ended the season 6-3 in the Big 12, you probably wouldn't be too hateful at that. You know what I mean? Like that
Mhm.
probably means that we went another 8-4 season, and we're not too far off that. You know, but potentially. I just don't. I agree with you. Like I think it's hard to sit there and fire a coach, and I think Ren Baker understands that. I also don't think he hates the position that he's in. I mean, the
Yeah.
school's under a budget crisis. If he wants to, he can sit there and say, "Hey, like, you know, I don't see any better options on the market than this because I don't. I mean, maybe revenue runs down so bad next year that you got to make a move because that's what people are talking about this year. Season ticket sales are down. Like you're just absolutely pigeonholed. So I think that that's why winning the 7th game is like so necessary. You know what I mean? Because you've got to try to start getting any kind of goodwill going back. And, you know, one win last week won't do it. 1 week this weekend probably won't do it. And maybe even a win in a bowl game won't do it. But it definitely wouldn't hurt, you know, if you're in that kind of position. But when it comes down to whether decisions made or not, I just don't know if I believe that. I think Ren Baker's exploring all options. I think that he's prepared to make the move depending on what happens.
Yeah.
But a done deal, I don't know.
But I do agree with you know, kind of the sentiment. I think that it was Mike Kazaza, one of the first people that I heard say it was that, you know, if Neal Brown is still around for the bowl game, he's going to be around for next season. If they make a move, they're going to want to probably do it before signing day, which is on the 4th. Of course, this
Mm.
Texas Tech game's on the 30th, so I mean it would be within a couple of days from that when we would probably hear something. But I think it's interesting what you were talking about there as far as getting the 6th conference win, because I do have a clip here from Neal Brown's post game press conference from this game I wanted to share that kind of this discussion that we're having kind of segues nicely into, because I feel like right after the game, you know, just hearing this, listen to his post game press conference while riding in the car on the way back from the stadium. Once I heard this part, and you know, he talked about it again later on in the press conference, it felt like to me like he's already, you know, trying to sell something, so he has something positive. So I mean, I almost took it then already. Like I definitely feel like he knows there's some pressure on him right
Yeah.
now because you know the way that this comes across. But I don't know. I'll hear your thoughts. Let's play the clip real quick and I'll hear what you think about it, Brad.
And then we still got a lot to play for, you know, and we got a lot to play for, you know, get the 7 wins. We got an opportunity to win 6 conference games in the Big 12. You know, we got a chance to have, I think, the best back-to-back years with Big 12 record. Opportunity to go 6-3 back to back. That'd be the best 2-year run since we joined the Big 12 within the conference. And I think people have kind of overlooked that, but that's important to us. And so we still got a chance to do that.
So Neal Brown there, to me, like I said, it came across, just as trying to have some type of selling point, which, if they do find a way to beat Texas Tech, which that's still a big if there. Neal Brown's never beaten Texas Tech at Texas Tech, but that seems like it's going to be the thing that they're trying to sell and push as, something in their corner. Hey, 6 conference wins in back-to-back seasons, which would be great, but also I don't know if it's like the first time it's the first time you could say you won 6, but I believe it was like 15 and 16. We won 7 and then won 5, so it would be like the same record to 12 and 6. Big 12 record, so it would match that technically. But also, what goes against it for me is looking at the teams that we have beaten in conference has always been like the lower tier. Even this year, every team that we've beaten is ranked in that bottom part of the conference right now. What's our best wins? Probably, Kansas in conference, which they look good now, but record-wise, still not the best. But I don't know. What's your thoughts there on what he says? Are you buying that? What he's selling there? Like you said, does it have you wanting to trust that climb again and say, hey, let's run it back for 2025 when he brings that out? Or do you think that that's just him trying to maybe save his job here, last-ditch effort?
Yeah, well, and to be honest, and people, you guys got me like, I'm no football expert. I'm just a Mountaineer fan that just speaks to my heart and fills it out. And I for one, I think it's a bit of a shot at the fans. I think it's, if you want to sit there and dig up random statistics about, my who I'm beating and whatever. Also, look at this. I'm 6-3, 2 years in a row. We've gone to 2 bowl games. If he wins them, then now he's won 3 bowl games at WVU.
Yeah.
He's not even lost a bowl game to that point, and he's gone half the years he's been. And I know it's not been everything he's wanted it to be, and it's not been everything we've wanted it to be, but it's fair to point to it. And I agree that people can be frustrated with the mediocrity and not beating great teams, but I would say we've not been a good enough team to beat a great team. And that's where I've always settled, especially that's where I've settled here recently, is that it's more of, I don't know. The one thing that makes me hesitant about Neal Brown for next year is that I don't know what he has shown me to prove to me that he would do anything different next year.
Exactly.
Right.
That's where I'm at with it.
But to that credit though, like now we've got a somewhat good functioning offense that's getting its wheels going, that's still kind of figuring it out. You've absolutely uprooted the defense. And so now there's going to have to be changes and some newness there no matter what. And something that's definitely been struggling the last half of his coaching tenure here so far has been the defense. He got the offense just about figured out, and the defense is falling apart. And that's what his big frustration has been, is he's not been able to get any kind of complimentary football here, not even just this year, last week, but the last 6 years. And that's what's been frustrating, is that consistency. And so, maybe that last defensive coordinator could be his last touch next year if he is kept. That might help take him over the edge, is just finally breaking that last mold. But I think like I said, one was a shot at the fans, be like, hey, like you can't argue against this. And then for 2, like you said, he could be pitching it, but also 3, it could be, if there's a deal that's already done, looking at them and saying, hey, they're saying we've done nothing. Yeah. This is what I've done. I won this game, and if I go win the next one, then look at where we're at. And so that's why I agree that I don't. And again, to Mike, as I was talking about it, because I went back through and was like listening to it before we got on here, because you and I had a bit of a you felt it was more of a done deal, and I said, to me it was more of saying, hey, Ren, if you want to pull that trigger, we're not going to let money stop you. You can't use that as an excuse, is that you couldn't afford it. If you keep him, it's kind of on you. You know what I mean? And if you fire him, it's on you. And so That's why I said, when you look at Rem Baker and he looks at it and he says, this is my 3rd year. If I get a 3rd year with Neal Brown, maybe we can definitely get this thing turned around, because you look at the culture of the program, you look at the way that he gets his players to play for him and buy in, and they haven't given up on a season that has not been what they wanted it to be, but the retention rates have been high. He's gotten the best out of a lot of these kids. Look at Hudson Clement. The guy had a hell of a game.
Yeah, he did.
He played so well, and I hope that he sticks around for next year and wants to stay with it. Morgantown kid, and be home. But you just never know going forward, and so I think that he's got some credit, but at the same point, I don't know that it's going to look any different next year, and that's what's just scary. But I mean, realistically, what's the difference between making that decision this year and next year? The lost revenue and season ticket sales. and revenue that way. But at the same time, like you're spending that on the coach. So
But I
don't
also
know.
think that if you do make the change, that if people like the hire, which chances are they probably are because they're probably feeling like I am. I think I said on the live stream hit before the game against UCF that I'm ABB, anybody but Brown right now. That's how I'm just
Mm-hmm.
kind of feeling about it as far as candidates are concerned. And I think that there would be an infusion into probably the NIL, into the collective of people that are excited, for the change to be made. Particularly when you look at some of the big money donors and some of the guys that they support. If it's one of those guys, they would throw a lot of money in there. So I think that that's another thing that that they have to take into account with it as well. Is yeah, it's going to cost you, but like you said on that back end, I think you could more than make up for that because you're going to increase your season ticket sales. You're going to probably increase your NIL dollars if it's a coach that people are excited about. All those things that go into it as well, and plus maybe you attract some more transfers because I think whether we keep Neal Brown or not, we're going to lose plenty of transfers this offseason with the revenue sharing coming up and so and things like that. So it's definitely something that has to be weighing on Ren Baker's mind if he hasn't already made the decision. Who knows if he has or not? We'll all find out, probably together in unison not long after the Texas Tech game, one way or the other. If there is news, probably making a move. If not, there is no news, then probably sticking with Neal Brown for at least one more year, and they're going to maybe, like you said, bring in a new defensive coordinator. We'll see what happens there. But hey, as far as it's concerned right now, at least they found a way to win another game here, get to 6 wins, get to a bowl game in this one over UCF. Some good things happened there in the 31-21 victory. You broke some tendencies. You didn't get the ball first. You finally scored in the third
Mm-hmm.
quarter. Among other things, you mentioned Hudson Clement had a huge clutch catch there for the offense that really sealed the game there at the end. And then West Virginia was able to run the clock out. West Virginia ran the football really well again. I'd mentioned in some previous games, especially the last one, I think CJ had like 9 carries, but he looked really good, and I was hoping to see him get some more. Not only did he get some more, but he also started the game, ran for nearly 100 yards. Jaheim made some good plays too, particularly one that stood out to me was when the ball was knocked out of Garrett's hands. They forced that fumble, and it could have been a touchdown for Cincinnati, but Jaheim dives on it, and West Virginia gets to punt the football, and you're up 14-0 at that point, and ended up being a critical play in the game when you look back on it. Actually, so a heads-up play there for him, and glad to see him still involved and active despite CJ taking over the starting role, and maybe that's a good formula for the remainder of the season is having CJ pound on him, then bringing in Jaheim late, and then, of course, shout out to Garrett Green, always a warrior, getting the win on senior day there for the Mountaineers. And of course, the defense, a better performance. They finally forced a turnover. They do a lot better when they force turnovers, and West Virginia wins the turnover battle. But as far as the actual game itself was concerned, Brad, what did you see that you liked, didn't like, anything that you want to discuss as far as performance against UCF was concerned in the West Virginia win on senior day?
Yeah, like you said, it was nice to see CJ come out and run like his old self. Really get that full head of steam. I remember telling Cheyenne when I was watching it, and I think it was like 4th and short, and we lined up under center and put CJ 4 or 5 yards back deep, let him start running, and then handed the ball to him. And I was like, yeah, I was
Yeah,
like,
I
you can't stop a
formation.
6'2", 240-pound man when he's running full steam. I don't know why we're trying to get him the ball from a dead stop and have him run. Just line up under center and hand it to him, man. Like pound it.
And nobody
Um,
wants to tackle him.
yeah, like the quarterback sneak is also good, but I think when you have CJ Donaldson, I think that's better than the quarterback sneak. Yeah, Marshawn Lynch, you give him the ball,
Right, I'd
and
agree.
right, like it's just what you do. And so it was good to see that going. I was heartbreaking to see Traylon Davis drop his touchdown catch. I really wanted
Oh,
him to get
wide
that.
open.
I wanted that so bad for Traylon Davis, but man, but yeah, no, like I said, Hudson Clement, man, I think that the wide receivers themselves with Traylon Ray being out really had to kind of take a step up.
Yeah,
And I think that they all took that on their chin a lot. And I think that, Hudson Clement took that on himself. I think they all knew when one of their brothers went down, that they all had to step up as a unit collectively. And you look at Rodney Gallagher finally getting his second touchdown of the
yeah,
season.
catch,
And
yeah. Another
yeah,
TD.
like I said, Hudson continues to excel. And, a couple other people, I think Jaden Bray got back in, right? Wasn't he back in this
Justin
game?
Robinson got
Justin Robinson was
he
good.
had Brady's
Okay.
actually he had to have surgery. He's out for the year.
Ah,
Unfortunately, Neil Brown announced
yeah.
that just before the game. So,
Yeah, I
but
didn't
Justin
catch that.
Robinson did make that big catch, which is nice to see after he had that drop on 4th down last week. Go back to him this
Mhm.
week on 4th down, makes a clutch catch when they needed it. So that was nice to see.
Yeah, so that felt good. The offense looked clicking. Yeah, turnover was big. That turnover was massive. Really kind of like stopped us because we were in that dangerous point where I was like, oh, where's that 14-point swing at?
Yep.
Where is it at? Where it's because it's coming, and it's got so close a couple times, but it just never came to fruition. So that was what we love to see. That's how you got there and win those games. But again, you're not being a great quality team. UCF had some good things, and they definitely did what they wanted to do. But we got a W, and at the end of the day, that matters.
That's all that matters, right? That's the main thing. Got what we needed, a W at home, and we were happy to see that happen for West Virginia there. And I'm gonna give some interesting things of note from this game. Then we're gonna get into checking out the stats, and we'll give our players of the game before we talk a little bit about the crazy Big 12 conference where chaos reigns right now. But nonetheless, one final thing I wanted to mention that I thought was a pretty cool tidbit, and you mentioned Hudson Clement, who had standout game, a hometown guy. But speaking of, Mercer County guy, Dom Collins got in the game. West Virginia was working in some different receivers. Jarrell Williams had some snaps, and Dom got in once, and it's funny because I'd been talking to his brother prior to the game, and obviously I couldn't, share it or anything because I didn't want to leak it out, have it get out, and me be the one that makes it go awry. But he had said that Dom had told him that they had been working with him in practice and had a play drawn up for him that could potentially be a touchdown. His brother even said they were talking to Garrett before the game and said, hey, your brother might get his first touchdown tomorrow or whatever. And you saw him come in jet sweep motion and then take off down the field on like a streak, coming kind of across the field on a deep crossing. And absolutely, you saw the burners burn him, but the pass protection didn't hold up long enough for Garrett to really be able to get the throw off. He had to scramble out of the pocket the other way and wasn't able to be able to throw across the field. But hopefully, it's a sign of things to come. He's still able to redshirt. He can play in these final games. I'm hoping he makes the trip to Texas Tech and they get him involved. Maybe have some other things drawn up for him. That was the only snap he got in the game. But, hey, hometown guy from down here in Mercer County, where we're from and stuff, had to shout him out. And I think he's a guy with a bright future. That's a 4.240 guy, guys. So definitely
some real speed
that
that came from down there right now. Yeah.
Yeah,
that's exciting. Sure. I didn't know you had to play it, and then I'll have to go back and find that because I want to see it. Because kids, real time quick.
First quarter, I believe it was. Yeah. But pretty cool. Hopefully next time they're able to connect on it because he was wide open. He had burned them with those wheels. But let's run through the interesting things of note. Just got a handful from this game. One of them we kind of teased a little bit. This game, you snapped a 17-game streak of getting the ball first. It's the first time West Virginia started the game on defense since Houston of last year. West Virginia now 4-0 all-time versus UCF. The win was West Virginia's 200th all-time in Milan Puskar Stadium. And WVU moves to 19-2 under Neal Brown when running for over 200 yards as a team. And West Virginia, since 2002, is now 104-15 when winning the turnover battle. So interesting things of note from this game. Other than that, Brad, let's dive in on the stats now, man. Let's look at the team stats here, and then we will get into the individual stats, name some players of the game here. West Virginia with a 31-21 victory. Got a touchdown in the third quarter. Brad, we mentioned in the preview.
Got it.
They hadn't scored. We said maybe they'd score 21 now. They didn't, but hey, at least we did get that touchdown.
Yeah, we did.
Good to have it. But as far as the team stats are concerned, 21 first downs for UCF to 20 for West Virginia. WVU did a good job on third down defense in this game. That was another thing that they stood out on defensively. A couple areas they've struggled on throughout the years, forcing turnovers and third down defense. Did a better job of those in this game. 3 of 9 for UCF. West Virginia 8 of 18. Fourth downs, West Virginia perfect 4 for 4. UCF goes 1 of 2. Total yards 348 for UCF to 323 for the Mountaineers. 172 yards passing for UCF, 118 for WVU. Rushing, like I said, the Mountaineers over 200 at 205. They hold UCF to 176, which is big because this has been the number 2 rushing offense in the country. So West Virginia did a good job holding them to nearly 100 yards less than their season average. I think it's right at 90 yards less. So good job there on that as well. And like we said, West Virginia wins the turnover battle. Forcing the one turnover, don't commit any themselves, and then West Virginia dominates time of possession, 38 minutes to 22 over UCF there. So team stats there, anything you want to touch on or anything that stands out to you there, Brad?
Yeah, Jordan, fourth down efficiency. Look at that bad boy, 4 for 4, and they were almost all big fourth downs. Not that any fourth down is really a small fourth down, but they were massive, and getting the short little yards, like yards per pass right there, 5.6. Like that just shows that we were hitting the intermediate ones, not thinking too long. But, I think that we just kind of played a sound game, had a really solid offensive game plan. We're able to kind of run a good bit, kind of moving the way we wanted to, and able to, connect on some passes enough to get up ahead. And then once I think we got ahead, we were able to kind of just play our football game. And I think that that's really why we won. And then, like I said, a big turnover when it really mattered. Special teams playing top notch. Michael Hayes really putting him out of the end zone. Oliver Straw getting a
Yeah,
penalty, absolutely ruining himself, trolling himself.
it was a great
But
punt too.
yeah, beautiful punt. And but it was a good team win. And like you said, it was senior night, which has not gone well for Neal Brown in the past. So it's good for them to finally get a W, especially for Garrett Green. Man, that guy's been a true
Yeah,
Mountaineer, and it's been a blessing to watch him play some football. Wish I could have got him to watch him play some more instead of Jared Dagey. But at the end of the day, brother, I appreciate you. You're a true Mountaineer, and thank you for putting your mind, body, and future on the line for our program.
absolutely. Well said, man. Guy's such a warrior, and you gotta love his heart and his grit. Every game he brings it, and he has every game he's suited up for sure. But I think, like you said, kind of a textbook Neil Brown type game. Dominating time of possession, finally winning the turnover battle, which I think was your key. Mine was, winning the rushing battle. They did that as well. And like you mentioned, the fourth downs definitely were big, especially a couple of those coming there at the end when West Virginia was able to just milk all the time off the clock there, converting a couple fourth downs. Very big there. So there was what we have team stats wise. Now let's get into the individual stats, and we will name some of our players of the game in this one. Like we mentioned, Garrett Green, 13 of 21 passing, 118 yards and a touchdown. And then CJ Donaldson leads the Mountaineers in rushing, 96 yards on 19 carries, two touchdowns. Jaheim White added 12 carries, 54 yards and a touchdown of his own. Garrett, 18 carries, 49 yards, a little bit higher. He was sacked a couple of times. Probably had 50 plus for sure. And then our Rodney Gallagher, the third there, 2 carries and 6 yards to round it out. Receiving wise, as we mentioned, big game from Hudson Clement, who really stepped up when West Virginia needed him to. 5 catches, 81 yards, 2 for 13, but one of them very big for Rodney Gallagher on a little fade pattern to the end zone there. Justin Robinson, the 1 catch for 10 yards, but like we said, that was a clutch one as well on a conversion down. 3 catches for 8 yards for Cole Taylor, one for Preston Fox, and one for Jaheim White. So offensive stats there, Brad, after we ran through them. Who would you have to give your player of the game to in this one?
Yeah, I'm going to go with the non-obvious one. I'm going to let you have it because I've just been hyping up Hudson Clement all day. So I'm going to give him my player of the game because, like I said, it's been a while since we've had a wide receiver really had a definition game. Other than his 3-touchdown 100-yard game from the God, what was that? Long Island? Was that
Is
Long
that
Island?
Long Island or
Duquesne.
Duquesne?
I think it was
Yeah, that's right. It
Duquesne.
was Duquesne. That's right. Yep.
Yeah. So I'm gonna give that to Clement, man. Really has showed that he can really compete with anybody in the Big 12. And like I said, I really hope if there's anybody that's on this team next year, I hope it's him.
Agreed. I hope he doesn't go anywhere. He can be a key piece for sure moving forward and had a great game and low hanging fruit, but I'm going to take it. CJ Donaldson,
Mm-hmm.
19 carries, 96 yards, 2 touchdowns. Gets his first start. Jaheim White had been the one, going out first, and we talked about, CJ being the one that led the way this time, and I think that he had really deserved that. I mentioned in our review of the Baylor game that I thought he deserved more carries. Looked like he was really running hard, and you saw that from the get-go in this game when he first touched the football, really running hard behind his pads, running through guys and, averages over 5 yards a carry, gets in the end zone twice, breaks off a 30-plus yard run, and a great day at the office for CJ there. Gave him nearly 20 carries, and I think that that's what you need to do with a guy like CJ. He's a back that gets better as the game goes along and had one of his better games of the season there. So there's our players of the game and the offensive stats. Let's flip it over, talk about the other side on defense. Anthony Wilson leads the Mountaineers in tackles. He's racked up a ton of tackles this season. He had 10 in this game. You get 7 for Trey Lathan, 7 for Garnett Hollis, 6 for Josiah Trotter, and 5 for Reed Carrico. All 3 of your linebackers there in your top 5. And I liked West Virginia's game plan on this one. Switching it up on defense, going with a little bit of a 4-3 look, playing 3 linebackers, getting a little bit bigger to stop UCF's run game. That's why you see all 3 linebackers up there. And those 3 have been standouts this season, particularly Trotter and Carrico. For Tormamoba, 4 tackles. Tyron Bradley, 4 tackles. One of them is half of a TFL. He also had a pass deflection. And Dantes Fagan had the fumble recovery there as well. You get a sack from TJ Jackson back in the stat column there, who also had a TFL, of course. And then Hammond Russell shares that TFL that I mentioned earlier with Tyron Bradley. Having said that, Brad, any thoughts there? Who is your player of the game on the defensive side?
Yeah, I gave you the easy one on the last one. I'm gonna take the easy one on this one. Anthony Wilson, man, has just been playing great all year. Big boomstick, number 12 right there.
Yeah,
Can't say enough of the guy. Big pass deflection when we've been needing him all year. So yeah, I'm gonna go with number 12 on that one.
I like it. I like it. He's been very solid for us, making a lot of tackles there at that second level all season, and that continued, of course, in this game. Double-digit tackles, the only Mountaineer in there. So great choice there. For me, defensive player of the game, I'm going to go to TJ Jackson, man, just because this was a guy that started off the season, wasn't a starter, really came on, started shining already in his few snaps, then became a starter after an injury to Eddie V, which knocked him out for the rest of the year. And from then on, he was an absolute stud, near the top of the country in TFLs, was near the top of the conference in sacks, ton of QB pressures near the top of the country in that as well. And then, since then, the middle portion of the season, he's really battled injury, but has still been out there fighting each and every game. Now he's been kind of the focus of other teams, game plans. Baylor really keyed on him last week. It was his first kind of down game of his career. So to bounce back, come here and have a sack against UCF there in this one, I think was big for him. And he just deserves a shout out after a great performance this season. So I'm going to give TJ Jackson my player of the game on the defensive side. But we'd be remiss if we didn't mention special teams, as you said there, Brad. Preston Fox with a big kick return, took it up near midfield. Multiple good punts from Ollie Straw, of course, minus the one that was negated by his own penalty there. But he had one that was nearly, it's 57 yards here is the long on the stats as you see, but he actually punted that from the back of the end zone. So, you'd add 10 yards. That's nearly a 70-yard punt. Oliver Straw, a great punter, going to be a good one for the future of West Virginia. And Michael Hayes, a great performance in his final game there on Mountaineer Field. Not only knocked through his own field goal, but I think the biggest thing was the touchbacks that you mentioned earlier. So there's what we had there as far as WVU and UCF is concerned. We talked our thoughts there, thoughts about the future with Neal Brown, a little stat breakdown with our players of the game. But now we got to talk about this crazy Big 12, man.
Mm-hmm,
It's
mm-hmm.
been an absolute tumultuous season. You looked like you finally had some guys that were going to be the standout top two in BYU and Colorado. But yet again, more chaos throughout the conference. So we got to talk about it, do a recap of the scores here, then we will share the standings. But let's talk about this crazy conference, Brad. Let's talk about the scores here from week 13. Pull these up here. TCU takes down Arizona as we all predicted and expected in that one, 49-28. No surprise there. WVU defeats UCF as we've discussed, and we were all three glad to be wrong with our prediction on that one in West Virginia. Get the win, but how about the shootout there in Stillwater, Oklahoma State and Texas Tech, West Virginia's next opponent? You should be scared of the Texas Tech offense, but also West Virginia should be able to move the ball on them. Texas Tech's defense has been their issue all season. That rears its head against Oklahoma State. They outlast them 56-48 in an absolute shootout there. So West Virginia is going to need to score some points in Stillwater this upcoming week, and we'll preview that game later this week. And then, of course, what was our game of the week? Not to toot my own horn or anything, but there was one person that picked Arizona State on the show and two that picked BYU. And Arizona State comes out on top, 28-23, and they control their own destiny now in the Big 12.
Yeah, Arizona State, what a surprise, man. But an
Yeah,
absolute stunner
that's
of
one
a
thing I
season.
mentioned to Steve after we were seeing the score develop throughout the game. I said, I think you should need to throw some money on whoever the conference picks last in the preseason poll to have a good season. Look at us last year. Now look
Mhm.
at Arizona State, who was pretty much last this year, likely to be in the Big 12 championship game. It's a good possibility.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, you even go to like TCU the few years before that because they were supposed to have a bad season under their, so it was the first year under Sonny Dykes, right? It was his first year,
Mhm.
and everybody was, curious about what TCU would even look like. They didn't think that they were going to look that good under, not look as good after losing
Gary
um,
Patterson.
Gary Patterson, right? And then they come out and shock everybody. So
Yeah, make a huge run to the Natty. So you just never know. You never can call it. That's why they play the games, right? Can't play them on paper, and those preseason polls a lot of times aren't worth the paper they're written on, unfortunately. But hey, that's the way it goes. That's part of the fun. Gives us something to discuss throughout the preseason. But I like the way that the conference has turned out, just to be kind of the complete opposite of what everyone expected, and a lot of surprise teams. Wish we were, higher on that list, their ranking of surprise teams. And if we'd have won that game last week against Baylor, we'd be in good position right now because
mm-hmm.
not only does BYU go down, But Kansas takes down Colorado 37-21, and Kansas is playing really good football right now. If they'd have played like this all season, they'd be an absolute contender. They, couldn't win some one-score games early, and that really hurt them. But right now, 3 straight wins over ranked teams. According to a report, I believe it was Brett McMurphy I saw that put it out. First team in FBS history to as a team with a losing record to defeat 3 straight ranked teams. And Kansas has now done that with 37-21 win over Colorado, who is pretty much all but knocked out of the Big 12 title game now with the tiebreakers as they currently are.
Wow, incredible.
Yeah, what a turn of events, right? You thought Colorado was going to be in there for
A
sure.
lot, yeah.
They were super hot. They meet another team that's super hot in Kansas, and Kansas with the, double, win there, 37-21. Unfortunately, it was the old, looked more like the Colorado defense from last season than this season in that one. And Kansas, continues their good performance, and they're on a hot streak here to end the season. Another team that's been on a hot streak is Baylor, and they find a way to win yet again. They've been scoring a ton of points, but Houston, if they've done one thing all season, it's play good defense. Under Willie Fritz, I think they have a bright future. They hold Baylor at only 20 points, but Baylor gets the win 20-10. I believe that's their 5th straight win, if I'm not mistaken. Baylor really hot here to close the season as well. Take down Houston 20-10 on the road.
Yeah, absolutely rolling over there. I really looked at that scoffs at the beginning of the season and took it personal.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Big time turnaround from there. I believe it was 2-3 start or something like that. Big time turnaround for sure. And they look like a completely different team, and maybe a bright future with Dave Aranda if he can keep Jake Spavital there as offensive coordinator and some of the pieces that they have on a really hot streak right now to end the season. And then Iowa State. 31-28, outlast Utah. Utah, put up one of their better fights, one of their better performances of the season. But it's funny, man. As crazy as this conference has been, it's been such a roller coaster. A couple of weeks ago, it looked like Iowa State was probably going to be out of contention from even reaching the Big 12 title game. Now they're looking like one of the favorites, and it's looking like maybe them and Arizona State are the 2 most likely options, although who knows what could happen with as crazy as this conference has been. But Iowa State very much in the picture right now after the 31-28 win over Utah.
I think we should get a trust the climb parlay going.
Yeah, right.
For West Virginia to get into the Big 12 championship, which would include, I think, all of these people ahead of us losing.
Yeah, there was someone that put out the
5-team.
The scenario of it. It's
Houston
like
has to win. Kansas has to win.
Yeah, pretty much all upsets too, for the most part.
Yeah,
it would be absolute insanity, but it is still like I think the percentage I heard was like a 2% chance West Virginia still has.
Well, yeah, because there's two ways that we could get there, where we'd either be playing Iowa State or Kansas State, and it's 1% versus 2%.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and it's like the only games that don't matter is the Kansas State Iowa State game, because whoever wins that game we would be playing. And then the Houston game, that's the only other game that doesn't matter. Outside of that, it's like or the Utah game. Like we need like Houston to win, Kansas to win,
Arizona to upset Arizona State.
Arizona to upset Arizona State.
Yeah, a lot of insanity would have to ensue.
Lose again, I think, or something like
we're
that.
telling you, there's a chance.
A 0.1% chance.
Exactly.
And a 0.2% chance.
The most minuscule of chances. But
that's why I said a parlay, though. It would be, a great day to be a Mountaineer on that day.
Yeah, right. That's what we should all play the lottery if anything like that was to happen. But speaking of, man, Kansas State, 41-15, absolutely manhandles Cincinnati. And unfortunately, yet again, for West Virginia, it's just a case of all the teams that we have beaten being mediocre to below average. Cincinnati, the time we played them, winning record.
6 team, just not yet.
Yeah, thought that would be something to, hang Neal Brown's hat on, but you definitely called that one out, Brad. If even that, they may end up with a losing record at 5-7, and unfortunately, that's Kansas right now is looking like the best team West Virginia's beaten, and still right now they are currently don't have a winning record either. So you're looking at Cincinnati, Kansas, UCF, Arizona, and Oklahoma State as West Virginia's current Big 12 wins, which are all at the bottom of the Big 12 standings, which we're going to take a look at now, which kind of goes against the knock on Neal Brown that we've talked about a little bit, unfortunately. But these standings are crazy because, like we talked about, with all the scenarios going on, just interesting how it could play out. Technically, we have a 3-way tie for first place between Iowa State, BYU, and Arizona State, all 6-2 in conference. Colorado's 6-2 in conference, but they're 8-3 overall, and the tiebreakers drop them down. Then you have Kansas State at 5-3, Baylor at 5-3, Texas Tech at 5-3, TCU at 5-3, and West Virginia at 5-3. So that's the logjam that we're talking about there. Then you get down to the bottom portion. Kansas, who has won now 3 in a row, all versus ranked teams at 4-4 in the conference. And then the bottom portion, you have Cincinnati and Houston at 3-5, UCF at 2-6 with Arizona, Utah at 1-7, and Oklahoma State still winless 0-8 in conference. There's your conference standing. So I know we talked a little bit about it there, Brad, but any thoughts on this crazy Big 12 as the picture continues to unfold each week? We'll continue to give it to you guys here, but who knows what these standings will look like next week. But for now, we got at least a little bit clearer picture with 1 week to go. I think it's most likely that we could be seeing Iowa State, Arizona State, but your thoughts on the standings or how this thing may shake out, Brad?
Yeah, and I mean, really, you're looking at, talking about Neal Brown. He could be in a position that he's tied for third in the Big 12 if he just wins next weekend. Even if things don't shake out his way. And just another credit to how do you fire, number 3 in the Big 12 and, what he said to himself. Just something I thought about, because you're really looking at, a win here puts you in a chance to be in a maybe a 3-way tie for third, but something kind of crazy.
Indeed, man, it is.
Showing he's right on par with, the best of the Big 12, the top part of the Big 12. So, if anything,
I was going to say, I think someone described it as like purgatory right now as a Mountaineer football fan, because like Neal Brown just does just enough to where it looks, serviceable, but you don't ever win any like the meaningful games. And so you're just stuck in this like purgatory right now.
Yeah. It's like not knowing whether you're good or not.
Yeah. It's wild. It's a wild time for sure to be a WVU football fan, and hopefully something will break this cycle one way or the other. And as far as the Big 12 is concerned, we'll find out some answers. A lot of crazy tiebreaker scenarios. I wanted to see, I think I might have actually had one. I thought I may have screenshotted on my phone. Let me see if I did or not. Some of the crazy tiebreaker scenarios this week, since we've gone over the standings and done the score recap here. Just a little fun, something to wrap us up here at the end. No, I didn't. Oh, but I know what I did screenshot because I almost forgot. I meant to do this earlier, guys. I apologize. But I did put it out on Twitter, Brad, to ask some people if they had any questions, since I knew we'd be recording tonight. Did get a couple responses, I believe, so let's share those. But you can look up the tiebreaker scenarios. There's a website you can look at.
Why is Neal Brown still employed?
That's one of our first questions there. If you want to answer, Ghost in Me. I put it out on social media. If anyone had any questions, we'd feature them on the episode. So, Ghost in Me. Why is Neal Brown still employed? I mean, obviously a little tongue-in-cheek there with his question, I think. But nonetheless, we'll give you an answer, Ghost in Me. And, Brad, what's yours?
Yeah, I think that he's still employed because we couldn't afford to buy him out.
Yeah, good answer. I'll just say what I always say. Like I said, I know your question's probably
and he did enough to stay.
Yeah, WVU's not going to fire a coach mid-season. Never have. At best, you'll hear something after Texas Tech game if he is gone, which is what I'm hoping happens. Do I think that's what will happen? I don't know. Like I said, at the time we're recording this, a lot of smoke that might be the case, but we'll just have to wait and see what happened. But still employed currently because, like we just talked about, he's been doing just enough. Just enough.
Yeah, doing just enough,
Yeah, that's right. And
that
then
costs a lot of money to get rid of him.
From Iconic Lemur, asking about bowl matchups, which is what I did have a screenshot of here, was the Big 12 bowl tie-ins. I'll list them here. And then, Brad, if you want to throw out a team, maybe you'd like to see us play, or a couple teams you'd like to see us match up with in a bowl game. But as far as the tie-ins, info I can give you here, Iconic Lemur, which appreciates your question. The Big 12 tie-ins are the Alamo Bowl, which used to be versus the Pac-12. Don't know who would be the matchup there. And then you go to the Pop-Tarts Bowl versus the ACC, the Texas Bowl versus the SEC, the Liberty Bowl versus the SEC, the Guaranteed Rate Bowl versus the Big Ten, and then you get the Independence Bowl, which would probably be against someone like Army, and then a couple other options they could throw in if necessary, the Armed Forces Bowl or the First Responders Bowl. But as we were talking about with where West Virginia sits, potentially being like third in conference, maybe fourth, and at worst probably like fifth. So that would probably get you looking at the Texas Bowl versus an SEC team, the Liberty Bowl, which we played in before, versus an SEC team, or the Guaranteed Rate Bowl, which we've also played in before. I believe that's Neal Brown's only bowl loss there against Minnesota. But that's probably the three most likely, just judging by the tie-ins for West Virginia, would be the Texas Bowl, the Liberty Bowl, or the Guaranteed Rate Bowl versus what looks like SEC or Big Ten potentially in one of those three. But Brad, as far as Iconic Lemurs question about bowl matchups, anyone that you would hope to see West Virginia play, or anything that you have there concocted that you'd like to see as far as bowl matchup is concerned?
I mean, really, after last year where we were kind of just like scooped up into the Duke's Mayo Bowl, I kind of think that bowl games are getting a little bit more fluid now, even though I know they're pretty well set or supposed to be. But I'd like to find like a regional person. Whatever matchup may be close enough to that would be really nice. That way it feels a little bit more meaningful and you could get people up for a little bit more. But yeah, I just wouldn't be surprised if like bowl games start decentralizing from this set standard and maybe start doing it a bit differently. Just personally, a little thought out there.
Yeah, I wouldn't be mad about it, especially with how conferences are now and all of that. So it makes sense. But yeah, that's definitely would be ideal for me. Dream scenario is I think Virginia Tech's playing UVA for bowl eligibility this week. I believe VT has 5 wins. So if they win, they'll be 6-6, or similar record with Virginia. I mean, that'd be an ideal scenario, to match up with VT. But wouldn't mind. What if they did a backyard brawl rematch? Pitt's falling off. They're going to have similar record. I don't know. Big Ten and SEC, and a couple of those other ones that I listed there. I would have to look at the standings to see who would be where in the Big Ten or SEC, but I would much prefer to play, like you said, someone regionally. But nonetheless, that's kind of what we're looking at there. But appreciate those guys that sent in the questions there, Iconic Lemur and Ghost King. Was it Ghost? I can't remember what your name was. Ghost something.
Yeah.
But we said it there when we showed you your question there on the screen. Now, of course, I should have probably put that tweet out sooner. Probably got a little bit more response to it, but maybe we'll do that again here before the season's up and get some of your all's questions. And of course, you can always come chat with us on our live streams. We do those weekly before the games. We'll do one of those again prior to the Texas Tech game, which we'll be back to preview later this week. But other than that, Brad, man, I wanted to talk a little bit about Neal Brown's status, and of course, talk about the game and then a little Big 12. But that's about all I had. Really, you got any final thoughts or anything you want to throw in here at the tail end of episode 211 here of the CRW Pod?
Nah, man, we're living in a crazy world. It feels good to get a W, and it feels crazy that there's a 0.1% chance that we could end up in the Big 12 championship. So that's kind of wild. Otherwise, yeah, trust the climb. Let's go. Season 7.
Hey, that's right, man. Hey,
7-5.
hopefully, man. That's what we're still rooting for the Mountaineers, no matter what. I think I've made my stance pretty clear now what side of the fence I've landed on after being a long time Trust the Climb guy, a long time Neal Brown supporter. I'm just ready, for a change. But nonetheless, I'm still cheering for the Mountaineers. Still made the trip up to Morgantown this past weekend to cheer them on against UCF. We're going to be doing the watch along stream here on the channel, the game watch party, and we'll be cheering them on against Texas Tech, hoping for a win still yet. And I hope we get to 7 wins, and I hope we do get to those 6 conference wins that Neal Brown talked about in that clip we played earlier. Regardless of how I feel about wanting a coaching change, still want to see the best happen for the Mountaineers, and let's do it. Let's go try and get a win on the road in Lubbock, and we'll preview that game later this week. But we appreciate you guys tuning into this one, whether you took it in on YouTube. If you did that, be sure hit that thumbs up button, give us a like. That helps a ton with the algorithm. And subscribe here for future Mountaineer football content throughout the rest of this season and into the off season. We cover transfer portal, recruiting, and maybe coaching staff news. If we need to cover that as well, we'll be on that for you right there up to the minute that it happens here on the Country Roads Webcast. So subscribe here if you're a WVU football fan to our YouTube channel, but we appreciate you guys in the audio version as well on any podcast platform, Spotify, Apple, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, you name it. Listen to us there and leave us a rating, preferably a 5-star one if you would. And shout out to our good friends over at WVSportsNow.com for their great WVU content and for hosting our episodes on their website there as well. You can catch these episodes of the CRW podcast there also. But that'll do it for 211 here. We put a bow on WVU and UCF. West Virginia moves to 6-6 overall, or 6-5 overall on the season, I should say. Excuse me there. Freudian slip there. Hopefully they end up 7-5, not 6-6, but 6-5 on the season, and currently 5-3 in conference in that log jam there in the Big 12 standings. We'll let you know how that shakes out, and we'll preview those games in the conference later this week as we get set to preview the Texas Tech game in episode 212. Looking forward to that one with you guys. For my co-host Brad, as always, I'm Jordan Cruz, and until next time, let's go Mountaineers.
If you really want to know, then come on, let's go. Take a stroll down those